T-6, I believe, was our first aircraft that we got in the early part of 1948. Some of our early pilots, they started a training program. And eventually, and then shortly we had the second T-6. So that was our airplanes that we really started with.
I joined the Air National Guard in 1948, and in summer camp in 1950, I applied for a pilot training slot with the Air National Guard. I was accepted and went to Goodfellow Air Force Base, Texas in January of '51 and started flying the T-6. At that time, that was the first airplane you flew in pilot training.
On our own, we set up our own training programs and so on. And in fact, General McDonald was in our class. When we got to a certain point, we would let the students sit in the cockpit and start the airplane and run it. And I remember the night McDonald did that, he says, boy, he says, I gotta fly one of these.
Summer camp of '49, summer camp of '50, while I was working on airplanes. And Fred was the line chief and was the big guru and knew all about the airplanes. And so basically he'd have classes and teach us. I had a crew chief in '51 who didn't like to get up early in the morning, so he checked me out on how to warm the '51 up. So I'd get up at dark 30 and go out and pull all the covers off and start the airplane up and get all nice and warm, make sure everything, fluid levels were all up, the gas, oil, and all that. And then some pilot would come out and take my airplane and fly away. And I didn't like that, so that's when I decided I wanted to be that pilot. When I got to Korea, why they said, no, we don't fly the 51s anymore, we're transitioning into jets, how much jet time do you have? And I said, none, because I hadn't flown a jet. And they said, okay, well, we'll send you to Mosquitoes. And I said, what's a Mosquito? And they said, that's a T-6, a liaison airplane that's used for directing strikes by fighters and marking targets and things like that. Well, that wasn't what I wanted to do, but that's the assignment I got. We were called forward air controllers. And that's basically what we did, is we controlled the fighters. Or we'd pick the targets based on the ordnance they had and controlled them. So they couldn't drop any ordnance between the front and what they called the bomb line. The aircraft that was controlling the whole thing, the C-47, would call us and say, I have a flight of fighters for you. And so the fighters would come in and we'd tell them where the target was, see if they could pick it up. If they couldn't pick it up, why, we'd try and mark it with either artillery smoke, or we had white phosphorus rockets on a T-6 we could fire into the target, or as close to it as we could. And when they got done, why, then we'd go back over and assess the target. So I flew the T-6 about 25 missions, and then I spent 90 days at the front and then came back and flew some more missions. I finally ended up with 34 combat missions in the T-6, about 100 hours.
I'm the owner of this SNJ-5 T-6 you see in the background that both my son and I fly. And it's a 600 horsepower supercharged 9-cylinder radial engine.
So we're pulling over 8 times. Okay, we're good.
It's just a nostalgic bird, and it's seat of the pants flying, and it's just, it's very fun to fly.
When you're ready to go, I mean, I'll ease it in. You give me a head nod and we'll go.
Top clear.
ride that she had purchased at our celebrity auction?
You know, it was great. I grew up flying with my father, and I got Kelly to take me out flying. It's just beautiful to be up in the sky, and we had weather, it was changing, you got rainbows, it's just beautiful.
Yeah, this airplane's a lot of fun to fly. You get the adrenaline rush every time you start that Pratt & Whitney 1340 up. You get that rumble and get up into the air, do some aerobatics. It's fun to do some patriotic flybys and do some donation flights to benefit the Air Museum.
I'd like to go to the air shows and see all the old veterans that are there. Well, usually we come in fairly hot, fairly fast, and we turn our smoke on so they can see the smoke and fly by, and we'll usually make a couple passes. And Tim and I, we love to fly together, and it's fun to critique one another. He'll fly one direction and I'll fly the other, and we're watching over one another, making sure that we don't make any mistakes, but it's just fun to fly.
We do some formation flying with all the T-6 guys, and then we go to Oshkosh from there and do some flying there in formation. So yeah, a lot of fun. It's a fun plane.
Be the high bidder, buckle up and have some fun. So if you haven't flied, you should give it a try.